You're on.
Okay, 6 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting to order. And Mr. Scanlon, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Kathy, roll call, please.
Mayor Bean.
Here.
Councilmember Chapman is excused. Councilmember Furby.
Here.
Councilmember Scanlon.
Here.
Councilmember Skook.
Here.
Thank you. And we'll move on to public comment. This is limited to 5 minutes per person. If you would like to speak, please go to the podium, state your name and your address, and then you will have 5 minutes to speak. And looks like we have someone in the room who would like to go. We'll go, if you want to go, and then we'll move to Zoom if there's anyone there. You can go first.
Claudia Demarest, 821 Maurice, Ishpeming, Michigan. I was just wondering, what is the status of the fire hall tower and floor? The wrap that was put on 1.5 to 2 years ago was supposed to be temporary. And what is the status of the library columns? See, they're still falling apart. And what is the status of the wall in Cleveland location that was going to be fixed and a pocket park put in? There are shingles coming off of City Hall. Has anyone looked at it to have it repaired before winter? And when the city had the big rain event, the alley coming off of 8th Street, which runs between Maurice and Wabash, is a good sized hole that is getting bigger whenever we get heavy rain. Now I know the city knows about it because I've told employees about it. The DPW general foreman said it will get taken care of. My question is when? When someone drives into it and gets damage to their vehicle, and then the city gets sued. The city needs to do something with the ditch that runs along 8th Street. There are people putting leaves in there, cement, among other junk. They're using it for their recycling. There's a pipe along that alley which runs down to Wabash Street, which is supposed to take care of the water from the ditch. But with all the junk being put in there, it could be plugged. Has anyone looked at the pipe to see if it needs to be cleaned out? Because I know DPW used to clean it. We should put up signs along the ditch, no dumping. And not just one for the whole 2 blocks. Send a letter to the residents in the neighborhood. We do have several new residents who may not know that you should be dumping the Christmas trees, your leaves, cement. We have cement trucks that also dump their extras in there. With all the money the city manager says we have, taking care of the city's issues should be the priority. We don't really need GIS mapping and online services for the cemetery. We have a building with an outfall that is going to be needing some major repairs. Start fixing what we have. And I've noticed the city hasn't done any budget amendments this year. According to the Michigan Department of Treasury Uniform Budget Manual, amending the budget. When necessary, the budget must be amended. The budget must be approved by the legislative body prior to the expenditure being made. This is a requirement of the Budget Act, which requires budget amendments before the expenditures exceed the budget.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment? Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to provide public comment? All right. Last call for anyone with public comment on Zoom or in the room. Okay, then we will close public comment and we will move on to approval of the agenda.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will take us to item number 6, which is agenda comment. So this would be comment specifically to an item on the agenda. This session is limited to 3 minutes per person. And same thing, if there's anyone in the room who would like to provide comment on an agenda item, please go to the podium, say your name and your address. Is there anyone for agenda comment? Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom for agenda comment? Oh, that's the mouse, isn't it? That's, yep. Okay, all right. Last call for agenda comment. Okay, then we will close that and move on to the consent agenda, of which there were several items. Item A, minutes of previous meeting, July 6, 2022. B, dispersal or approval of disbursements. C, declare 127 library books and 1 rocking horse as surplus. D, appoint Julie Lumen to a vacancy on the Housing Commission, term expiring October of 2025, and appoint Lisa Thompson to a vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Commission with the term expiring May of 2025.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That brings us to item number 8, which is the monthly financial statement report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start out with the financial report. You do have a copy of my report. I have a number of budget recommendations or budget amendments that I will be presenting at the next meeting, formally presenting those. Basically, these are to get caught up and clean up with some of the stuff that's taken place so far this year. I'll also be watching the budget throughout the rest of the year, and you can anticipate probably in December another round of budget amendments to wrap things up for the end of the year. Also included with the report is a summary of the of our funds and monthly financials. Basically, this is the accounts, the pooled cash by fund that's available in each of those. And then down below is a summary of the revenues and expenses. You'll note there are some that we're waiting for funding, such as the major streets and the local streets. Those are reimbursement dollars that come in from state sources that will reimburse for those costs on that. So those will be adjusted as they come through. And then lastly is a copy of current revenue and expenditure report for the city finances. Are there any questions that I can answer?
We had, Your Honor, if I can, I apologize, Joe, because with the new format, I can't put my finger on where it was.
Okay.
But we had a starting cash, ending cash, and difference that Jim was doing for a while. I'd like to see that back again. I don't remember if it was on that block. Is that where it was?
Okay.
But it really simplified, it showed gain or loss.
Okay.
So if we can fit it in as you see where it would fit best.
Okay. I will add that information for the next report.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing no other questions, we will move on. Thank you, Joe.
Motion to accept.
Oh, sorry. Then I would entertain a motion to accept the monthly financial statement report.
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the monthly financial statement report as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Right, move on. Item number 9 is a presentation by Dan Perkins for municipal composting program grant opportunity. And Dan, I think Craig will get you set up there.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Lindsay Mead and City Council of Ishpeming for hearing this presentation. I did submit a letter, but it didn't get into your Friday packet, so it just got distributed now. I know you don't have a chance to read it. I'm not asking for any heavy action items or anything like that. But I just wanted to let you all know that we are moving forward with Partridge Creek Farm. We've had a composting program for 5 years. It has caught the eye of Eagle, which is, we've already received 1 grant from them for a truck and a trailer to pick up compost. Compost is the most important part of the landfill opportunities for Eagle to diminish the organic content in landfill. Apparently, Eagle and the Martin County landfill all agree that they could divert 60% of the garbage that goes into the landfill if we could develop an effective composting program. And you see what we're doing with Partridge Creek Farm as a key example. They have no projects going up here with composting in the Upper Peninsula, and they really want to establish one, and they feel like we're their best opportunity. They approached us on this. And so we are applying for a slew of grants, and one of them is not through Eagle, it's through the USDA to develop a large-scale composting site in Ishpeming. So the city of Ishpeming has a few industrial properties, and I own a 22-acre parcel where my shop is. And I only use about half an acre for my shop, and the rest of it is just open. We're surrounded by 2 Class A highways and a railroad line, which is an ideal setup for a growing composting site. We're away from all the residential. We're quite hidden. You have to go back through my driveway and then through a long road through the back of our property to open near the railway line, which is not near any residential properties. And so this is a site where we want to grow this composting site. We just cleared 7 acres of trees to go from the half acre that we're now using as a compost site to develop a much larger composting site. So this USDA grant is a $300,000 grant that we would write, but it has to be applied through the city. The city has to apply for it. We would manage a lot of I realize that the city is working with some very large grants right now, and the capacity to administer a grant is pretty limited. We would give full support to that. If there was any, I mean, obviously, if you're submitting reports and financials and paying bills through the city, you would need some compensation for doing that. We would write that right into the grant. The grant's due on September 1st, so that's before your next city council meeting. And so what I'm asking for is permission to work with the city manager to develop this grant and apply for it. Now, obviously, before it was implemented, let's say we were awarded this grant, we go to the city council then to make sure that it was approved, that it was accepted. I mean, there's always potentially say, you know what, I don't really want to do this. So then you have the opportunity. There's no real obligation. What I'm asking for is just an approval to work with the city manager to submit the grant on the city's behalf. So, you know, Partridge Creek Farm is a nonprofit education farm. I'm sure many of you are familiar with what we're doing. And I feel like we're really uniquely positioned to handle this grant because a big part of moving compost out of the waste stream and into composting locations. So we would provide those locations or times where we could accept residential compost as part of the grant. We would set up locations, collection bins, and take care of them right on the spot various times during the week. And we would monitor that waste coming in, make sure there's no trash going into it. And then we would compost it. This is and turn it into soil. So we need the soil because we're building a big farm over right next to the Jazz Valley housing. We're developing gardens at First Street School. We have a number of clients who are interested in our soils and our compost. We can distribute it, and we can, and it also fits our mission of developing a sustainable agriculture. We need a lot of the soil and amendments for growing our food. Our mission to teach people how to grow healthy food and to develop a resilient local food system in the UP. To use that to also educate and mentor our children into healthy lifestyles and also social emotional skills. It's a whole, it all goes together. And we found that the compost is actually a revenue stream for the Partridge Creek Farm. And every nonprofit needs revenue streams other than just grants or donors. We need sale of goods and services. And this compost is turning into a real potential to grow and provide as a revenue stream to sustain our program. So I think with that, I'm going to use up my 10 minutes, and I don't plan to. I just thought I'd open up the floor for questions.
Your Honor, seeing that there are no questions, I would move that we grant his request and move forward with the grant application. We've done this before. It's not a commitment to the grant, and time is tight, so I move that we grant permission and move forward.
What's the timeline for, so the deadline to apply is September 1st. When do you anticipate hearing an answer on that?
Well, this has been really an interesting time. A lot of these government agencies are tight on their staff and time. The response time is very unpredictable. Like the Eagle grant, we just applied for a $100,000 Eagle grant to get trailers and a tractor for our site and parts. And that was supposed to be decided a month ago, and they still haven't given us a full commitment yet. It's just, I'm not exactly sure when they're going to announce the awards, but obviously we keep close touch with our city manager and to inform.
I don't have a clue on the timeline either, but it's probably at least 6 months.
Okay, that's what I was wondering if it was further out.
That's a random guess. I mean, just on the strategic revolving fund, we're looking at a January to October timeline on that. So I would assume it's going to be something similar. But some of the things that the attorney and I will have to review on this, just so we're clear, is ownership of stuff. So normally if the city applies, they're the stakeholder, but we're talking about a compost site on someone else's property. So, and then revenue generation that could support a program as a nonprofit. I think all of it's sort of doable by correct documentation, but what does that documentation look like, and what are the lease or other terms that are set by condition that's not been analyzed yet? We can have to work through that. I haven't seen what the match is, so I don't know what the match is in this at this point either. I mean, this is pretty raw for me, just as it is for you, other than a conversation where Dan asked to get on the agenda. I think that, thank you, Sue. I think that it's very important to do waste diversion, and it supports the entire community, not just the city of Ishpeming. Probably all of the county, and at some point we create a new model for the entire UP. So it is a significant undertaking, but it is also a city contributing to the well-being of our environment and its residents. So it's probably a great effort to do. There's probably some technical details legally to make sure, and I'll be working with the attorney as well as Dan to make sure that we meet that. I know that the Brad from the Solid Waste Authority is also interested in our being successful as well. So it does have a lot of support outside of here at this point.
Okay. And we,
The thing I'm hopefully going to see, we're looking for, is the waste diversion letting up on our tax or our landfill charges to our taxpayers.
That's absolutely part of the goal.
Yeah.
Is to decrease the amount of money the city is spending on waste.
Excellent.
so between now and September 1st, we have you and Caroline have capacity to work on this?
Well, we'll definitely get the grant application together
Okay.
and work on the legal stuff. I don't know that the legal stuff will be ready by September 1st. That would be a far cry, because I'm not sure what all is gonna be required. There'll be probably a lot of back and forth with legal as we submit the application. But before a grant would be offered to us, they would want to see those documents in place. So we would have some time to get that organized. The application itself is, generally, they're pretty clear cut, like, are you willing to do a match? Are you willing to do certain things? And it's, you fill in the blocks.
Okay.
I wouldn't talk to this kind of legal stuff, but we will be working on that to make sure that we have those things lined up, because they would be the next step.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions or further discussion on that? Okay. There was a motion and a second to move forward with the grant application in conjunction with Partridge Creek Farm for the municipal composting program. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Congratulations, Mayor Bean, on that running the crusher. 50 miles in one day. Impressive. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
We gotta talk.
All right. Item number 10 is GEI Consultants Category B funding non-participating sewer with sanitary sewer lining. And that would be Mr. Fabry.
And Brian, can you just check that? The mic's going dark on us, so.
So we were awarded the MDOT Category B grant quite a while ago, and a portion of that grant was to do some extra points that the city was awarded, which were doing utility work underneath the roads. And this is just a portion of getting the sewer work done for Poplar and Stone and Home Street. So we put together a little board recommendation for tunnel vision. The plan was to do the sewer pipelining. However the process goes there. So tunnel vision did a project or a bid for MDOT back in 2020, and so that was competitively bid. So we were hoping the council would go with waiving the competitive bid, knowing that they already had a competitive bid with MDOT. They won the contract, so included in our recommendation was that MDOT bid that was awarded, and their cost is really close. I think their 12-inch pipeline went up a little bit. Otherwise, their prices were the same, if not a little bit lower for the other portions. So I was just hoping for the green light to let television get moving on doing the sanitary portion of the MDOT Category B, and then for the water, and then before we get the road work completed.
And so some of this is kind of unique in that the Category B has components. You wouldn't hire an engineering firm to hire a company that's gonna dig up sewer if you're gonna line it. But then at some point, we're gonna do some water work where we might have to do some digging work, and then we're gonna do some road work, which was probably the same contractor that does that digging piece, but the liner piece is all above ground. People come home and they won't even know that the work had occurred and that the liner was replaced. You got to see some of that last year or the year before, but what we did was we worked with MDOT, because this is an MDOT grant. They have a large contract with Tunnel Vision already that they did all the competitive bidding, and MDOT said that they would accept that same competitive bidding pricing to meet our charter requirements for competitive pricing, because it's an MDOT and an MDOT. So it saves us time, it saves us effort. There are no other folks doing lining in the UP. There are some downstate that would then increase cost on mobilization. And we already have a pretty good relationship with working with Tunnel Vision on other stuff. So we're keeping it local to the UP, and then keeping it within the competitive bidding prices of MDOT to MDOT. but it also then will allow us to get some of this MDOT Category B executed this year. We're still looking at whether or not there's opportunities to do any road work this year, but the road bids are pretty high and they're mostly full already for the rest of the year. You can find one or two companies, but we know we can get this liner work done between now and the fall. So we want to keep moving forward. The Category B funding does extend into 2023, so we'll be able to get those other competitive bids for the other work. And Brian, you might talk just briefly to where the estimates were for the liner work versus the rest of the work, and are we on or off budget in any way, shape, or form as what we proposed initially on this project?
So, yeah, if you look at the first table on the Federal recommendation letter, so there was our engineer's estimate. I think it was 2 years ago, when we put in for the grant, we threw an estimate together, what we thought the cost would be. The MDOT contract, the price is right below that, and then what their actual quote is for this work. And one of the big changes is the MDOT price, I couldn't do the traffic control. So the MDOT job is per day, for road closure, per sign, all that, or for their quote, it's at a lump sum. But they're within the ballpark of their MDOT bid, like I said, only the 12-inch liner did go up a little bit, and they are under what we estimated when council approved going in for the grant to begin with, for the sewer portion. So that's what that table does, and then it's also included with that letter for each item that was compared.
So the cash we're talking with here, Brian, is not Stone Street or any of that, just Prairie?
This is for Stone, Holton, and Poplar.
Okay.
This is all the sewer work. And there is no water main for Poplar, so after this goes through, essentially Poplar could be hopefully paved yet. Because the water main's just under Stone and Holton.
And Prairie is what's, I don't remember if there was anything under Prairie.
I might have said that wrong, sorry. So not Poplar, Prairie Avenue, I'm sorry. Right by the church up there in the addition. So it's Prairie, Stone and Holton.
And then we could do Prairie and Lower Bigelow yet possibly this year on pavement.
Because we definitely want to get the utilities done, because if there's a chance that the liner won't go through, then you're digging up a section, and it would not be ideal to pay it first and then have to dig up later. So the goal is to get utilities first, and hopefully a portion done this year yet.
So the timeline would be those two first, and then Stone Street like next year?
Well, so we had all that's the goal. At the very least.
Stone and Holton?
Stone and
Same
Holton,
time.
yeah. But we'll still try to get all the sewer done. We'll get the sewer done on those roads for sure, and hopefully the water done this year, but then that one might need to get paid next year. And depending on pricing and availability for the other streets as well this year.
So to clarify, we're talking at least this year, Prairie, sewer and water, and hopefully complete pave?
Hopefully, yes. And there's actually no water
On Prairie,
There's
oh,
actually
okay.
sewer, but yeah, that's the goal.
So we're not gonna be cutting up after the fact. We're gonna pave it, everything will be good. That's the goal.
Yeah, and Prairie is a complete reconstruct. And I think also included the grant app with the information I sent, just to refresh everyone. Prairie was a complete reconstruct, sand, gravel, and pavement.
So this is currently under the estimate for the project. So it's within the budget that you've already approved.
So we are,
You're just allowing us to waive competitive bidding and use this MDOT bidding as our competitive bidding to hire tunnel vision and move forward on.
And will that potential increase in the traffic control still be covered by what money we have?
Yeah, even with that traffic control, we're still, I don't know, that was just based on the estimate, is what I'm basing being under budget on. Not sure what is there right now exactly, but that, just based on our estimate when you put it into the grant. That's where the 171 comes in, that's what we estimated when we applied for the grant, I believe it was 2 years ago now.
Well, Your Honor, if everything presented here is on the spot, I don't think we can afford not to move forward, and I move that we waive competitive bidding just for common sense. It's the only company in the UP. They've always done good work for us, and anything else is gonna increase our costs. So I'll make that a motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I know it's not really the work by the club or the lift station there. So I think the city just entered an agreement with them, so I guess I'd recommend that the city just hires someone directly to get the work done. I guess to keep us out of the middle of that, might as well just work with them directly to get the sewer work scheduled and done. Then we can work on the water right after, and then the road work.
What lift station is that?
No,
Park Street?
he's saying that we had already done a direct
Oh, gotcha.
contract with Tunnel Vision in the past, so.
Yep.
So we'd already have the contract language, we just have to cover the new
Understood.
locations, but they would cut out the markup of GEI by hiring direct.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, item 11 is UPEA consider repaving Marquette Street from Reedy to Snow.
Is the green light on? It's the green light on, there's a little window on the side of the mic. Just push the bottom until it turns green. Yep.
Okay, I'm Kevin Anker, I'm the project manager with UP Engineers and Architects, for those of you who haven't met me. I'm currently overseeing the project over on Empire Street. Spent a decent amount of time out there today, so sorry if I'm dirty, but talking with Craig and Bill, it's looking like with the budget on Empire Street and the current city funding that we do have, there's gonna be some money left over for this year to look at other streets. So, prime candidate that we'd like to have is Marquette Street. That hill is currently completely failing. I don't know how much has been patched over the years, but the erosion is just getting worse and worse. So that was one project that we wanted to try to get in before the winter, because obviously with plowing and everything, it's only gonna get worse. So what we did is we went to Lindbergh for a quote. Given that they're already in town, we were working on that Park Street job. And that is the quote that is provided here. Lindbergh actually went out for paving prices to different contractors, just because this time of the year, it's pretty difficult to get a paving contractor on board for a new project, not to mention expensive. So we were able to come up with this quote and this budget. We had $108,000, $1,085.25, and that was also including Marquette Street from Hennepin to Woodward Street. That's another real bad area that plows are just beating the crap out of. So we had asked that originally with a letter that would be awarded to Lindbergh without a formal bidding process, similar to what Brian was just talking about. And we talked about it with MDOT a little more, given that M28 business route is their jurisdiction. And we also want to consider adding catch basins and a storm sewer across the highway to that project. And we're estimating that at about $150,000, and that will leave us contingency in case anything unforeseen pops up. Yeah, that's what I'm here today to ask is as a board would award this work for $150,000 as a budget for Lindbergh to repair Marquette Street and then the spot on Second Street.
So just to add, so right now, we're asking similarly to what we just discussed on the MDOT Category B. These contractors have been bid out competitively. We know that Lindbergh won that competitive bid, but the common sense portion of this is that Lindbergh's in town. They're not going to have to mobilize, so there's no mobilization cost because they're here on site doing work. We're just adding to the amount of work that they would be doing as a cost savings to the city. We've included Marquette Street from Reedy or Division or M28, whatever name you like to choose for that one, and depending which map you're looking at, but from Reedy up to Snow Street. It'd be a lot of reconstruction at the bottom Reedy side and some improvements at the top end, putting in some bit curbing to help manage some of that runoff. And then this picture is not in your packet, but it came out, we made it today, but there's at the bottom of Marquette Street, we would put 2 catch basin structures in, and then we would bore a stormwater line across Division to the storm system that's on the other side. And that's where we're talking to MDOT, because MDOT, one, it's their responsibility for Division in that area. 2, they might have a cost share that they would let us do this and participate in some of the costs. The original look at budget was to look at what we had available in the street fund. And then we also realized some savings on the Empire Street project. So as we managed that street project to the plus and minuses of unforeseen, but also savings on quantities and other things based on actual soil conditions and other conditions, we're saving somewhere close to 90,000, depending on the day and what other things might pop up between now and the end of the project. But we're nearing the end of the project, so we think that that number is pretty close. There's a savings of about $90,000 on the Empire project that automatically would be able to show us the benefit to this. But the MDOT piece and whether they cost share or not, there's some unknowns to that catch basin piece. We believe we know the structure price. We know we have Lindbergh's quote on all of the rest of the Marquette Street. It's just the unknown of that boring across Division Street of the storm. And so what we're asking is 2 things: a competitive, or waiving competitive bidding, and then authorizing that additional capacity. We think it's in the neighborhood of $50,000. So the price that you see from Lindbergh right now is a little over 100,000, but we think we can do the whole project at the $150,000 mark or under. And so we're asking you to give us up to $150,000 decision here for that Marquette Street to be done, so it can be done this year. Again, it's one of the ones we get many complaints about. If you look at the pictures that you were provided, you can see how rough shape that is. You can see down into the sub base in many areas of that street. So we think it's the right thing to do. We think it's the right time to get that fixed, and it'll also save on our plowing equipment in the winter.
So to clarify, this estimate for Marquette Street for 83,000, and then,
Oh, yes, thank you. The Second Street from Hematite to Euclid.
okay,
It's an area that's been patched probably 20, 30 times and very rough. It's got no infrastructure underneath it. If you go past Euclid, you get an infrastructure and then other costs. So we wanted to just fix that one stretch. And
So
that is
that's
included, that is
in this?
included in
Okay.
that cost.
And then the, so the total up to 150,000 includes the catch basin and the boring under 28 that isn't reflected on this.
I think Craig has to go there, it's at 150,000 would be the total,
Right, so this,
not 200.
I'm sorry, did I say 200? Oh, I might have.
150,000.
150,000, But so this says up to 108, so that additional up
That's
to
that.
150 includes that?
That's the new
Okay.
catch basin
Okay.
and boring, yeah.
And there's potential for some cost sharing with MDOT, we don't know.
Correct.
Okay,
We're discovering that
That's
now.
kind of a- Just earmark 150, and we should be good with that, it's just gotta be coordinated still.
okay. And we have 90-ish thousand in savings from the Empire
And we
project,
had about
so,
160,000 in the street fund already. So we
Okay.
have plenty in the funds between the street funds and the savings from Empire to be
Okay.
able to do it.
So in addition to the savings from Empire,
We
we're
had
gonna pull 60,000,
70.
roughly?
Yep, 70, yep,
so the
From
150
100.
is the grand total.
correct,
We're not pulling 150 out of the street funds.
correct.
Okay.
It's the 150 minus the savings from Empire. Because there's still days left on the project at Empire. I don't want to say there's not something going to happen, because the moment I say that, something will happen, so.
Understood.
It does state in here that regarding the Second Street area, this area does not have utilities needed for replacement that would result in potential near future reconstruction. Is that the same for Marquette Street station?
Yes. Yeah. The dividing line on Second Street was Euclid, though.
Forward, I'll make a motion that we waive competitive bidding and approve $150,000 towards the Marquette Street area and the Second Street area for reconstruction.
Sport.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I think these look like very much needed projects.
City taking care of the city.
Okay, our next item is number
Switch cameras, sorry.
12, which are special event applications, of which there are 3. First is the Eagle Mine Picnic on August 19th, the Margie Jessic on September 17th to the 19th, and the Marquette Marathon on September 3rd.
Your Honor, these are all somewhat of repeats. They're all good friends of the city. I move that we approve all 3.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on to item number 13, which is JX Truck Center quote for transmission cooler for DPW truck number 158.
So this is the sander that we acquired from the county. The oil cooler is one of the items that failed on us this year, and in order for us to use that truck, we have to have this, and it's above the expenditure that Craig is allowed to authorize.
So Bill, you said for us to use this truck, we need to add the transmission cooler?
No, there was a transmission cooler, but it failed. It's just the age of it and the use, it's always in the salt. So literally, when we try to move the truck right now, we don't even start it. We pull it out of the garage with the loader. We can't even run the vehicle.
Your Honor, I'll move that we authorize the general foreman DPW to move forward with the oil cooler for the transmission at the sum of $3,302.99.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Your limit is 300 for approval, or 3,000?
Yeah,
So it's over by 300?
yeah.
All right, item number 14 is the proposed cemetery software GIS mapping and online search. And this was discussed at the last meeting and then tabled.
So this time I streamlined it a little bit. There's less options, and I also brought backup. Ken is here from Tri-Media, and he's able to answer any of the questions that you guys have. But basically what we're looking at is doing the whole entire cemetery at the cost of $73,150 over a 6-year period. And on one of the slides, the very last slide, is the breakdown of what it would cost each year.
And where would we be pulling that?
So on slide 5, we updated the options for available sources. The cemetery care fund is one of those sources that I think is most appropriately used in this case. There's $155,000 total in that fund. About $75,000 of that is cash, and then the rest remains in investments between CDs and an investment firm. We generate about $11,000 a year from the care fund to the general fund. So there's options there. My recommendation is that we look at the cemetery care fund as the sole source for this. We don't generally use a lot of that. We do, the $11,000 a year is generally meant to cover most of the normal costs that we have. Part of the salaries of our DPW workers and other materials that aren't associated with a fee-based burial, but I think that the funding sits in that fund for this type of purpose. We are, looking at delivering a service to our community. We're looking at a cost savings overall administrative wise when we have this mapping done and the time it takes to find a loved one, find their markers, maintain the cemetery, and other things that are associated with proper accountability of those stones. So long term, you're going to save, but I think that that's exactly what that cemetery care fund is meant to be. But we can ask the finance director if he has any other finance recommendations for you.
Has this been brought to the cemetery board at all?
Yes, it has, and they voted on it at the last meeting
We've
unanimously.
been talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
Right, Karen? Your Honor, I'm glad this got tabled. My first point is that I believe, and this is GIS system is considered, in my mind, part of the perpetual care. Because when we dig up to put a grave in, and I've seen it happen, the guys that work at the DPW or the cemetery don't know what they're gonna hit. And there are times when people have been buried for 100 years and our backhoe accidentally hits the casket next door because it's not charted, it's not mapped. And I think that we have areas that we need, not as a luxury, we need ground penetrating radar to see if there's actually people buried there or not. We have some sections of the cemetery that are really old. We've got $1 million, my favorite fund source that we can't use for crap, but we have income in the interest that it draws. Now, I don't know how much the interest is, but at this time, we can't do anything with that $1 million bond without taxpayer approval. But perpetual care doesn't really exist as it did in those days. You buy perpetual care when you bury somebody in our cemetery. So, and I'm not proposing that we approach that problem now. I think it's a big problem. But the tie from this GIS product and the ground radar, I think is more expanded than just a convenience for visitors or an aid for our DPW crew. I think it's invaluable, or I'm sorry, cemetery crew, but I think it's invaluable for those guys because with the proper documentation, their job's gonna go a lot quicker. So I guess I'm supporting moving forward, but I'd like to see us investigate the funding sources. And with it set up like Bill has laid it out here, we've got an out. I mean, we're not signing a complete contract for the whole thing, are we? Could we do a year by year?
I think that was what we discussed at
Just
the
said-
last meeting, was
I got
that
the
we,
head nod, so yes.
yes.
So, you know, I would make a motion that we undertake the, as Craig stated, we have funding. Additional funding would help, and funding from a different location would help. But I will make a motion that we move forward with 22 and 23, years 22 and 23. And I would like our DPW crew to have input on where.
We did. So
Okay.
the way, it's not on this sheet, but in the actual bid proposal, myself, Ryan, and Brad sat down and we picked the sections where they get the most questions. And that's where we started.
Perfect. So I will make that motion, Your Honor.
If I may ask for clarification, Mr. Scanlon, so there's a perpetual care fund and then there's the cemetery care fund. And for the sake of this conversation, my recommendation and the packet recommendation is the cemetery care fund.
Correct.
And then I understand you to be saying that you would support that as the source for 22 and 23 while we investigate the option to use the perpetual care in the out years beyond that of
Well,
the 6 years or other
additional-
sources.
Additional or supplement financing, but yes, cemetery care fund as presented
Thank
for
you.
2 years.
Thank you.
And for clarification, you said ground penetrating radar, but I'm not seeing.
Well, we still have to pick, I'm sorry, we have to pick a vendor. So I would, I would say that we grant the bid to Tri-Media, who included the ground penetrating. I guess the other one, I've never heard of them, and they can't hold a candle to Tri-Media, so.
They're the ones that we currently use for our software database. But again, by going with that one, you're not GPSing it. Each one, it's more of an overlay map. Tri-Media is actually going to do more work.
Right.
And it's
right.
ours, it's not a software package.
So if I could, I would amend that motion to be Tri-Media, awarded to Tri-Media.
Yeah, just to be clear too.
Yeah.
That's a software company that I think subs out to find some, some low-cost GIS services to help them keep their software company having additional service. Tri-Media is a service that's focused as one of their components on GIS and survey. So we know that we're getting the best surveying techniques and capabilities from a surveying firm, not from a software firm that's hiring out somebody to just help them plot points on a map.
Agreed.
And Caroline, are you okay with this?
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion and support to implement 2022 into.
Grant the bid to Tri-Media for the years 22 and 23, with the funding to come from the cemetery care fund. Is that the proper name?
Yes.
All right, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's 2. Okay.
Mayor Bean,
Yes.
Councilmember Furby,
Yes.
Councilmember Scanlon,
Yes.
Councilmember Scott.
No.
Motion passed 3-1.
Your Honor, if I could, a sidebar on that before I forget. Do we not have a module for BSNA for cemetery? Could we look into that just to see if it's
We don't currently have one.
No, I think one's
They might have one
Just,
available.
and that's not part of the motion, just, can we investigate that to see what's,
Yeah, I think, and I think that becomes another apples to oranges kind of comparison as we talk. I haven't investigated, so I'm
Yeah.
just spitballing here, but this Pontum is meant to be a software for managing long-term records of graves. BSNA is a financial service, and they have some components to help make some things. And they may have something that they've got, and we'll look into it for sure.
so we would stay with the Ponum software?
From the records keeping side, just not the mapping side. We would have, so this mapping is gonna go into our GIS system. And the tablet that you normally see our guys walk around with, they can go right to it and pull it up. Long-term, there's the option to even grow that to every handheld device being able to pull up an app and be able to tap that data. Pontum is about the records of the burials and the records of the families that are, if it's a five plot family versus a one plot family, and those kinds of records that are, much more detailed about the burial itself versus mapping software. So from that perspective, we have had very good success with the company that we're using for that.
Well, just to see what they've got.
Sure, yep.
All right, we are on to item number 15, which is discussion on change to traffic control orders converting Main Street from Canada Street to Euclid Street to two-way traffic.
So currently it's a one-way street, and you have to head north on Main up Canada, or from Canada up to Euclid. In the years past, I know the police chief had brought up some concerns about, there were some people that weren't able to make it up the hill, and that's why they made it a downhill only. To me, that sounds like a winter maintenance problem, not a street problem. There's three sizes of roads, 29, 35, and 39. 35 and 39 allow two-way traffic and two-way parking. In the uniform street code, it actually says that if you go with the 35-foot wide, it actually slows the traffic down versus a 35. So Main Street from here up is 39 feet. From Canada up, it's 35 feet. So it's still within the uniform traffic code to allow two-way traffic and two-way parking, but it would keep the traffic slower in the neighborhood. So what we're asking here is for you guys to approve converting that street back into a two-way traffic.
And the chief is on board?
He gave it,
The concerns would be, is there gonna be a stop sign at the top of Main Street, because it's already a three-way? Would it be a stop sign there?
I believe there is a stop sign at the top of it.
No, if you converted it
Newland?
to two-way going up, at the top of the hill, there'd be a stop sign there.
Yeah, we'd have to. Any intersection that you'd have to have a stop sign. I think that's a three-way up there.
There would
Because
still
it-
It's already a three-way.
No, right in, yeah, the streets don't tie in together. So it would be a three-way up there.
Would that help to alleviate some of the questions we've had about snow plowing up that? Because that would turn it into a two-way, which would then cause traffic coming down to expect that there may be oncoming? Or how would that work?
As far as the plowing, you'd do it two directions, up and down. I don't think that'd be a problem with, I mean, people are just gonna have to learn. It's not just this street, you're gonna get a couple of these over the next couple months. The DPW guys are looking at some of the streets, and it's just, that's the way it's been done for years, so nobody's ever done anything. But now that we're looking at some of these streets, it makes more sense to have the traffic both ways.
Stu, you had a question?
We pass Horse Hill Fire area. It'd be transported on street maybe years ago. Spotted that tournament would be, these used to be one way or two dogs. Yeah, bid. Up to half a day.
So I know for sure that we have some accident history on that road. We have some blind spot areas that would be, of concern because you're coming up a hill and looking around the library or coming down. Right now, people come down that hill pretty fast based on it being a one-way. There'd probably be some learning curve if that was to change. People are gonna have to learn to slow down and recognize there's some traffic coming off of Barnum that they're already used to just looking right. Now they have to look left. So there are some things as you make a transition like this that may increase a potential for traffic accidents up front. But the things that are really most important are making sure you have clear line of sight, good traffic controls, and roads that are in good condition, i.e. plowing or traffic management. So it may be, it's August. By the time you give a 30-day notice of traffic change and implement, you're into September, and then we're into our close to changeable weather. I don't know whether that's a consideration for the council as well, or whether we wait and do it in the spring, or whether we think about it. I'm not suggesting you're thinking about it or not. I'm just looking at some of the things we need to make sure we recognize. Anytime you change a traffic pattern that's been established for years, there's risk to that change, but doing it at a point where we're gonna be falling into a transition window of weather, that may also be something that adds to risk. But it's, I didn't necessarily formulate a recommendation. What I've asked Bill to do with his staff, and I've asked Chad to do with his staff, is go around and look at things and make sure that we're doing things for the right reasons. And this is one of those conditions that came up at the Public Works thought, hey, maybe this is something that needs to change.
Now, because that is all city streets that intersect, do we have to deal with any other government agencies? So a traffic change there is us.
Correct. And the more I think about it, I guess I would not make a motion about the stop sign at the top yet, because I think I want to talk to Chad some more and the DPW guys, because if this is a winter issue that you guys were having, maybe Main Street should be a through, and they have the right of way, so that they're not stopping at the top, where they have the right of way to keep their momentum going at the top of the hill. And then have the stop signs on the other two.
The thing that's gotta be considered is there's no straight through.
Right.
You're turning left or you're turning right.
Correct.
It's one way, the rest.
So they can't enter Main Street, they can't follow it. So they're gonna have to slow down to make that turn.
Yep,
And you said there'd still be parking on both sides.
correct.
Being that we don't have to deal with any other agencies, I would make a motion that we move forward with the change pending the DPW and police department's agreement on the plan.
Support.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And the reason, Your Honor, that I say that is if it doesn't work, we'll change it back. We don't have to involve the county or state or anything, so.
Were there any opposed? Okay. Right. And that brings us on to old business, and an update on water meeting testing by Midwest Testing LLC.
So you guys have been approving a bunch of different changes for us, and I just wanted to give you an update. We did have the water meters, the large water meters tested, and it turned out to our benefit. We found quite a few that were, so there's compound meters where they register large flow and low flow at the same time. We found 7 of them where the low flow wasn't working. So drinking fountains, one person using a bathroom, those weren't working in some of our high volume buildings. We also.
What size meters were they?
2s and 3s. And then we found 6 of them with low batteries, which means they were going to be failing soon, and then we wouldn't be getting the registers on those. We did find 4 of them that we have to completely replace because they were They weren't functioning at all. They were the original ones from when the building was built years and years ago. So
And these were all 2 or 3 inch.
those 3s and 4s on those ones, the ones that have to be replaced.
That's a killer 4 inch, 3 inch meter that's not working at all.
Correct. So the amount of money that you guys spent, you just regained with these meters
Easily.
immediately.
And the beauty part is all of our taxpayers will be part of that savings.
Yep.
Because we won't have to keep jacking up water.
Right.
It's very, very good job.
It's part of the thing that we're trying to do. We have certain things that we have to do in order to do the right stuff. And this was a big one.
How did we, as an example, a 4 inch meter, how did we build that? It wasn't working at all. And how did we not catch it?
That I don't have the answer for you. I honestly do not have the answer for that.
I think we need to look into that. If in fact that meter wasn't working at all, we couldn't have been getting a reading to bill appropriately.
And it could have been registering something to the point where you don't, it's registering something so you don't question it. But in Midwest Mind, those 4 meters are not functioning to they couldn't repair them, put it that way.
Yeah, I'd like to find out what was going on with billing there.
Yeah, and I guess I'm absolutely going to do that. I don't know, based on that comment, to what level it wasn't working.
That'd be
And
part of
that's
the answer.
right, so that's part of the challenge. It might have been reading something, we might have been getting readings. We just didn't have the ability to determine it was working or not until we mechanically tested that in a lab.
Correct.
And then we wouldn't know that we weren't billing correctly. We might have been billing correctly. We don't know whether it stopped in the moment they tested it or, 6 months or a year
Understood.
before. So
Yeah,
we'll do what we can to give you the best answer we can on that. But that's.
Okay. We'll go around for old business. Mr. Scanlon, do you have any old business?
None, Your Honor.
None? Stu, yes?
Do we have a contract for paving markings?
No, we do not have one at this point. We were doing it last year in-house, and that's one of the things that we're working on with Bill and his team. I think we've decided that that's above capacity, and we should be looking at PK and doing a contract. But it was too late this year to get that done. We did, well, they're out doing all kinds of other road work right now.
So, spent last year.
Well, we did a lot of pavement marking last year with our internal crew.
We did marking.
Correct. We did not do center lines. We did a lot of, but we hadn't done any markings in years prior to that. And we were working through our new employees and working through the equipment. It hadn't been there, it hadn't been gummed up, had to be brought back into service. Paint's been very limited in supply right now. You probably couldn't find paint to do it yourself this year. So.
And that was one of the biggest problems, because we had another project that I was asked to do some street markings on, and CCI pretty much bought up all of the white paint in Marquette County for a project that they're doing. That's what I was told, and we tried to get some, and it's very expensive at this point in time too.
What are we doing over by the triangle there, the Bermuda Triangle by the Oasis there? I think it's PK is grinding off that direction.
Yeah, so that would be an MDOT contract,
Oh, okay.
because it's Division M28. So,
And that, I assume they're replacing.
yeah, I've been watching them go around there actually in different places between Marquette, the highway, that area on Division and into Negaunee even. I've seen them PKs out there doing that. I think what they're doing is they're grinding it, creating new surface tension, so a new fresh coat of paint will adhere and be on there, rather than, I don't think they're grinding it all the way off. Sometimes you see them torching paint and scraping it. I think they're just grinding it to create the surface area and then painting over it. But that's a PK MDOT contract right now.
Is there any other old business? No? Then we will move on to new business. Pat, do you have any new business?
One thing, Your Honor, I think that I talked with Craig briefly the night we were at the fire hall, I believe. Didn't think I'd ever say this, but I think it's time for us to start investigating a new fire department. Claudia mentioned the tower. We can't get an affirmative yea or nay that says it's okay or it's gonna fall over. It would make a great police station and maybe something else. It's pretty big size, but our police officers, I know, would like to have a gymnasium of some type that's not in the basement, that's 6 inches deep with water sometimes. And as much as I love that fire hall, I think that we should focus on a new fire station. Like you said, we got the senior center done. Maybe we can look at MEDC or aid to firefighters if any of that stuff is left, but certainly not a motion of any kind, but I think it's time to start looking before we're in a bad way.
If I may, so you'll see it as part of the budget proposal for this year, but our goal is to do a design bid build. I always get that backwards, so purposely, but we would look to contract an architectural engineering firm to do the design work and then be able to put that out on the street, get the actual numbers that it's gonna cost, or, very qualified analysis, and then we can go after a USDA community fund loan or a community block grant or some other types of fundings, or even certain types of funds can be merged together. So those two specifically can be merged together, but a lot of the USDA stuff can't be merged with other types of funds. But just food for thought as you're thinking about it. There was a thought that we have issues in that entire structure, whether it's the police, the fire, or the public works. And we've done the structural analysis and got some rough cost estimates as of late this summer that we were looking at to propose, which also includes the library columns, that structural analysis. But the thought is we, as a concept, could demo the public works portion of the building, the floating floor issue that's there and things that are going off there. Reconstruct a new public works facility in a consolidated area over by our recycle yard. So we'd have all of our materials and our equipment together and not be driving across town to load a bucket of gravel and then driving back to get a truck or something. So it improves efficiency. And then maintaining the good quality portions of the building, which is some of that DPW administrative section there. The fire station itself is not unsound for light vehicles like police vehicles. So you could park the police vehicles in the current fire structure bays. And then we could do some internal improvements to the police department, creating a new fire station where the current DPW resides and being able to possibly dump out onto Hematite rather than onto Lake Street. And within that, you could take a portion of the break room and restrooms there, create a fitness center and locker room on the main floor as tied to a fire department. And so that would be a big, huge undertaking, big design, but it could be feasible. And so the budget you'll see will talk to getting that design work done. So that'll be in the budget for next year. And so we're already thinking that way, absolutely. We want to make this town better. I also talked to MEDC recently about whether or not there's some things we could do with the fire tower. And they even said they might be able to help us market it for some private investment. They've seen private investment be able to take something like that and restore it. So we'd have to look at whether or not there's some marketability there. But that could also feed into that same project as, what do we want to see it? Do we want to see it reconstructed as a whole new fire tower? Do we want to see some other variation? That would all come out in the design plan, but we are working in that direction for sure. Yep.
Stu? I would bring up as new business that we are due for a mid-year evaluation for Craig. And so I would propose to send that out early next week, same as we have been doing that for the past couple of years. To then discuss at the September meeting. And then last year, we did the employee survey in September and October, and said we would do a follow-up. So I would propose that we do that again, this time to include the fire department. And we can look at keeping the majority of those questions the same, but potentially asking some different questions that could be added on the end.
Do we have a punch list left from action items? Did we make honest effort to clear up a bunch of the issues that came out of that? Or are we neglectful there? So long ago, I can't remember.
I think a lot of them were organizational, and I think that the addition of Bill and some other staff may well have addressed some of those. There were a couple of specific, there was questions specific to software, and I think the recommendation was to evaluate software and its compatibility with existing software and whether or not to keep some of it. I don't know that.
Not specifically
Not
to those
specifically
two, but we've been
addressed.
evaluating like the GIS stuff. So
Mhm.
there's some, but not to all, and probably, you know, to the point of PubWorks and Text.my.gov, no.
The one that sticks out to me, the only one, was communication. I think just as an outsider, I think that's improved. I think with Bill coming on board and changes we've made, I think there was an improvement, but I think there was lots of things we talked about that we didn't do. So I think we should do the questionnaire accordingly.
Okay.
You know, while we discussed many things, how is communications, blah, blah, blah.
I think the next survey will answer your question, whether or not we.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
that is kind of why you do the
Absolutely,
second one.
but
Because a lot of it, I think, comes down to a lot of day-to-day interactions. And as I said, I think that organizational changes may have addressed a lot of those issues. And I say may have addressed, and a survey may answer that
I
question.
just feel that we missed a few things. And like I said, I can't pinpoint them, but I hate to do a survey and the mindset is you didn't do anything after the last one, I'm not even filling it out. You know, so I think that we need to preface with, you know, while we may have neglected this or we have attempted to do this, it's very important, please, and do the same scenario. You know, self-addressed stamped envelopes, so all the privacy is there. But I think it was good, and it did, a lot of things did change because of it. So I agree.
Is there, so I have all of that, I have that survey in I think I did it in a Word or something, and then we mailed it out. Would anyone else like to work with me on development of the additional questions and potential wording of those?
I can do it again if you want. Doesn't matter, you got more time than you had last year. That was a question.
I thought it was a statement. Yeah, if you need help, I'm available, yes.
We could gang up on it. I mean, the three of us or you two,
Okay.
whatever way you want to do it.
Okay.
If you want to get them together with you two and I can look them over or
All right,
whatever.
we'll come up with them and then we'll send them to you.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Okay. With the target of that being sent out in September. All right, Is there any other new business? Did you have other new business?
Just a save the date for August 18th. So I won't be there, and neither will our finance department, and neither will our DPW, but Councilmember Chapman coordinated a meet and greet with our state attorney general and Chief Justice. And we put a date on the wall that fit everybody's calendar. And we're getting LSCP support to get that out. We're inviting committees, board members, council members, city staff, and the Negaunee City Council. But it'll be at the Ski Hall of Fame on the 18th. In my head, the time is 3 or 3:30, I can't remember right now. 3 o'clock to 4:30 then, and it might go as late as 4:45, depending on the availability of the justice and attorney general.
And what's the purpose of this?
Just, they were coming in the area. At one point, Secretary of State Benson was also coming to the area. And so it was an opportunity to have them in our community and greet them and show off some portion of our community, like our Ski Hall of Fame. So it's at the Ski Hall of Fame, light refreshments, they'll get a short tour, and then it's just interaction. They might have a couple things to say, or there might be some question and answer period. It's just interaction and get to know some of our leaders from downstate. No real agenda other than that. However, in the planning of that, the state of Michigan has notified the city of Ishpeming and the county and the road commission that our declaration for emergency related to the storm will be evaluated. There'll be some discussion on what are the next steps and coordination with the state, and it is at the same date, a little bit earlier, but it will overlap with that meet and greet. So the folks that are working from the city to work those numbers and participate in getting those funds back from the state, or at least trying to get some of that recuperating funds from recovery, will be down in Marquette Township instead of at that meet and greet. So, but we,
As you should be.
well, and right. So I just want to make sure everybody realized it wasn't that we just skipped town. That's what we figured was the most important thing for this community, is we put in the need to recover those funds and to be able to fix our roadways, and the state's dictating that timeline, and we wanted to make sure we didn't miss it. So
For sure.
Okay. Does anybody else have new business? Okay, then we'll move on to our second session of public comment. This session is limited to 3 minutes per person. Again, if you wish to make comment, please step up to the podium, state your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? Is there anyone on Zoom for public comment?
there's no attendees.
Okay. Then we will close the second session of public comment, and we will move on to mayor and council reports. And we'll go to the left this time. Stu, do you have anything for a report? Okay. Liz?
I have two quick things, Your Honor. One was to thank the firefighters for our demonstration and our little soiree the other evening. We got a really good group of guys over there, and they're all business. I like it. Also to give Craig a pat on the back for the storm thing he mentioned, because initially we got shot down and they told us, no way, it's not gonna happen. And he stuck with it, and now it's a different ballgame. And hopefully we can make those improvements and not have to pay out of city funds. So those two items, that is all.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to the fire department for sharing their time with us the other evening, and also to Craig for setting it up. It was good to go and see, kind of what they do and how they interact and what the equipment does. Found it to be very interesting and educational, so thank you. And then, as I was telling Kathy earlier, July sort of felt I don't know, went by pretty quickly. I did attend what would have been a Parks and Rec Commission meeting, except we did not have a quorum, so we did stand around and spend a lot of time looking at the lodge building and the condition that it's in, and the potential need for a lot of work and repairs. And if you have something that you'd like to add.
Get those estimates.
Ah,
They were supposed to be done today, but.
okay. Okay, good deal. Yeah, so we didn't actually have a meeting, but we did spend a lot of time, productive time, I guess, looking at that building in general, so. And then, what was it? The Planning Commission did not have a meeting in July either, so it felt kind of light in July, although stacked with plenty of other things, so. And that's it for me. Manager's report.
So I would like to address a couple things. One, our resident asked about the roof of City Hall. We did notice that damage and we have filed a claim with our insurance. It is with Stonehouse to help us. They actually have the right color. We're just waiting for it to be on the schedule and getting it fixed. It has been filed and approved by our insurance company. We talked already about all of the things that we have assessed as far as structure. We are working on a plan to fix those things. And yes, we are very concerned about all of those things, from the floor in the public works to the columns at the library to the fire tower, but we are absolutely working in that direction. And then with Surf's ditch, or the 8th Street ditch, we do go up there and we check it, and there are things we can do, things we can't do, and we will continue to look at that. And we have checked the pipe to see that it's clear. It is clear. They did that earlier in the spring, and they continue to check that. And they do watch for people to be dumping. You know, residents can help us with that, certainly. You know, people have the right to hang a camera on a tree too, and use those things. You know, it's just like a hunting person or a fishing, you know, put a camera out that you like to watch nature, and all of a sudden you might see something happen. I don't know what, but there's some things we can legally do and can't legally do, so we are cautious around that. But residents can certainly help, and to that point, text.gov is one of those ways that if you see something and you're not sure about it, you can actually text pictures and text to the city, and we will get after that. But we are looking at all of the things. And I'm sure Bill's gonna work on the alleyway as well and discover that. Getting off of the subject of answering those questions that were asked, the campground is going wonderfully. Last week, they had both of the, was it 26? Sorry if I'm losing dates. The 26th, the bathrooms went in. They're beautiful. They're in place and they're sitting on vaults. And then last week, Friday, I saw that one of the wells was in, and the well driller was there for the second well, but they just hadn't completed. So I believe those are done. We're going to be going on to a project site update tomorrow, but the contractor is on schedule. We're looking at a 31 August completion. I was out there last Friday with the Watershed Partnership, who is the partner that helped us to secure a tree planting grant. So they were looking at the site and evaluating that, as well as one of their teams that does tree and trail clearing, and working on potential long-term arrangements and partnerships with them for helping us to maintain some of our trails, which might support some of our more volunteer organizations that have some trails, and also maybe trim back some of the time DPW spends on trails versus working on things that they're more qualified to do. So we're looking at those opportunities. I went to a meeting with Eagle and the USDA Rural Development, where they talked about the infrastructure dollars that are coming down. And Eagle suggested that probably around mid-August, we'll know the status of where we're going to sit in the preliminary assessment of scoring for the sewer strategic revolving funds that we applied for. And shortly thereafter, we should see the list of the clean water, or the drinking water piece With the proposal is they have to do that for preliminary scheduling, then go to open public comment period, and then close that by October, where they will award and issue out the opportunities or agreements that they're willing to subscribe to. And Ishpeming is looking very good at this point on that. I went to another meeting last week where Mishta and CEDM were present, and there are some other infrastructure dollars that are going to be good for our community. One of them is called MI Hope, and I don't want to even try to begin what it's a home and energy assessment stuff, but there'll be availability of funding to communities. Individual residents can apply for this funding up to $25,000 per household. And so there's some opportunity to maybe do some home energy improvements on your home, things like fixing your roof, putting a siding, windows, appliances, insulation, other things that would help our community residents. And with some big ticket items, $25,000 is not a small opportunity. So we'll be watching with that, but we are going to partner with the Watershed Partnership for that application as well. They're trying to prevent duplication in any region, and the Watershed Partnership already does energy audits and energy assessments and has a program for that. So our application will pair with theirs so that we can draw some funding that would be specific from Ishpeming to our residents, but help to be administered by the partnership. So we're working on that. Other programs to be coming soon, so stand by. The infrastructure dollars are seemingly finally coming out to the community. So we'll try to take advantage of those things. And then we will be able to apply for a strategic revolving fund again in '24. And they confirmed that stormwater management is allowed under that program. And so where there's no line of accounting in our city budget for stormwater, and we kind of play the sewer and water, we can actually apply for up to $20 million of stormwater improvements for the community. So we'll be looking to put that application in again, just like this other one. We'll see where it goes, but they project that the funding levels will be the same this year and next, which in the clean water is about $800 million of available funds. So it's a good opportunity for us to keep plugging away. And then the USDA Rural Development talks about how a little bit about their rates and where they're going. They are going up. They are higher than the state's rates right now. And but they will, if we decide to apply, they would help us to apply for fire trucks. We could do a 2 fire truck application for a loan. They make the loan period the durability of what you're buying. So I think a fire truck's life expectancy is 25 years. So we could do a fire truck application with the USDA. That is a loan. There's no grant money opportunity for that, but it could be that we could get 2 fire trucks parsed out over 25 years through the USDA for that. Again, we talked about the building opportunity that might be able to use USDA community funds. So there was a lot of great learning about all the different dollars that are coming out and the opportunities that might help us to move this and propel this community forward. So
Excellent.
All right, thank you. Sure.
I just wanted to thank all of our election workers for the great work they did yesterday in the state primary. It went good, and we're lucky to have all the ones we have.
Thank you. And Caroline.
Hey, been so talkative this meeting that, I should, but I don't actually have anything else.
All right, that brings us to item number 22.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
thank you, Jason.